he was kind of like doing those rolling burnouts up the hill, and there was just a black line, like exactly as wide as our tire, which is pretty wide, like all the way up this little hill. And so it was kind of funny because I knew like right behind me was evidence of our wrongdoings.
I haven't had a ringtone on my phone in probably 5 years at least.
That's good.
I just have them silent all the time.
It just changes all the time. It's like sometimes it's like ding, and then sometimes it's like vibrate, and then sometimes it doesn't do anything. I just need to figure out how to use my phone.
You'd start by picking it up
and
looking at it.
That's it.
I'm making a joke about the fact that you never look at your phone because you're always...
Well, if it doesn't ding or vibrate, then I've no reason to look at my phone.
Even if it dings and vibrates, Edwin, you don't look at your phone very often.
I hate phones so much. I keep trying to get a dumb phone, and then I realize that then I couldn't listen to YouTube videos and audiobooks in my truck. And that's the only reason why I don't get a dumb phone. Because cameras, I have way better cameras. And then why else do you need a phone? Besides
I send you some pretty good Instagram reels.
Oh, that's true.
Actually,
you're why else all of the things? Facebook Marketplace, for one. I mean, I know you're not the one that usually is browsing that, but that's a really big one. You got to be able to check Marketplace 64 times a day because you never know what's going to come up while you're sleeping. You know
that cable-driven excavator?
Yeah, the one in Montana.
So they messaged me and they were like, hey, like, are you still interested? Like, they're still trying to get rid of that thing.
Oh, nice.
And they said that her husband thinks it's 15,000 pounds. So we could legally drive that, right? Isn't it 20,000 is the cutoff?
It's 26, but
I mean,
there's no way it's only 15. Like, a completely empty deuce and a half would be 15. Like, I'd have to look that up, but like an empty deuce and a half would be 15,000 pounds. That thing is enormous.
I'm not sure I know what machine you guys are talking about.
So this is like half of the cab. It's an excavator in the back of a truck that has like two dually axles in the rear.
Yeah, it's basically literally an empty deuce and a half is 13,000 pounds. So it's basically it's a military 6x6, but with a cable-driven excavator on the back.
It's so
that
old.
Sounds sick.
It has these wheels and cables, so you can like take out scoops, man.
That sounds sick. Are we gonna get that?
Well,
I want to figure out how to get it here. It's like 300 miles away over in Montana.
And basically, if we hired someone to transport it, it'd probably cost more to transport than the thing is worth.
Right.
And then if we have a cable-driven excavator at Ethan's house, we kind of need it somewhere else to actually use it. Like we could dig a few little holes here and there.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have a use.
Yeah.
Like it's something we'd get for like the concept of buying a big property in the middle of nowhere to build trails and stuff that we've always talked about. Like short of that, it doesn't really have a purpose. So that's why we haven't done anything with it yet.
And that's really more of a maybe next year thing.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, what do we do in the meantime? And then we pay to transport it twice, but it's so rare. It's like we have to get it.
Once it was in this general area, it'd be really easy to get away with just driving it around. You know, like from like my house to like somewhere half an hour away, like that.
Yeah.
It's do all the back roads, dirt roads. There's like, it's the driving at 350 miles across Montana that's a problem.
Could you imagine? And this whole thing is like $3,000.
Yeah,
wow.
It's crazy.
Doesn't work.
It works, doesn't it?
I
think it does.
It starts, I think they say.
I don't remember. I didn't have the listing saved. So
yeah, I don't know if is it excavator or excavator?
Excavator.
Okay.
Not excavator.
Nice. I kind of go like 50-50.
I've noticed. I've never bothered to correct you because that's kind of pedantic. But yes, it is excavator.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to be saying it over and over again on this podcast, then... So here's the thing, though. Could you imagine how sick a video would be if we just went there, got it working enough to drive it home, and just drove it home? It'd be so sick.
I mean, if you ran into the same type of troopers you guys just ran into, it'd be totally fine. They'd just be like, wow, look at this thing.
Honestly, the thing is, I think it's so old and weird. Most people would just assume you're driving it from your farm to your other farm in Montana. Like, people drive tractors on the road all the time. Yeah. And they have different laws. And you don't need a CDL to drive a tractor down the road. Like, you're a farmer. You just need one of those slow-moving vehicle plaques. So I think if we put one of those on it, we could look into some laws. But, like, if we're going, like, 10 miles an hour...
We'll take side roads whenever we can.
And we could follow in the Chang-Li with an oversized load.
Yeah.
Like, but actually, it's just pulling the Chang-Li.
I'd say we could use it to, like, work on the roads and stuff up in my other property, but I already have like an actual excavator up there, so it'd be kind of not effective.
2 is better than 1.
I mean, yeah, I'm always down for more excavators, but we might need it to help build a house out of giant boulders like I was just talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today, actually. And I heard some pretty serious tandem outhouse ideas that I think we should talk about as well.
Oh, we're going to start with that?
But,
okay.
No, I was thinking we could start with the state troopers on Friday night.
Oh, okay.
Because we'd been kind of getting behind on editing, I guess isn't really the word. Basically, we take every extra second we have to make the videos better before they go live. So like Friday night, we're like, well, we have to test drive the Trouper now that you redid the suspension.
Well, backtracking a bit, though, we were getting ready to test it on Thursday, and then its electrical gremlins came out to play.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it Thursday, and I had to spend hours trying to figure out what its issue was. And then, which is why we had to do it Friday, because couldn't do it Thursday. Anyway, carry on.
So the legal situation of the monster Trouper is you do have it under your insurance, right? You did that before Sturgis?
No. I tried. Oh, my insurance didn't get back to me in time. So no, it's not insured.
Okay. So it's not insured, not registered, because the guy who registers custom vehicles said it needed real fenders and a headlight that can make it in front of the tire.
Basically, yeah. But Dirt Legal commented on our last post about it on Instagram, and like Dirt Legal, the company that like specifically does that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we can make this street legal for you. So like they not only think they can do it, but also know who we are. So
wow.
That might save a lot of process, because they do the same thing. They just know all the loopholes and all the ways to get around all the little annoying bits and paperwork. So we should look into that.
Did I tell you that I met the owner of that company when I was in Florida?
What? No?
I stayed at his house.
What?
When?
How do you always leave out this very important information from stories?
Oh, no, this guy's awesome. I can't even say his name on the podcast.
The owner of Dirt Legal?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So he was a co-founder of Grit Shift, which is the company that made that Suron with the skim plate.
That's such a random...
And so we were like, they're like, oh, where are you staying tonight? And we're like, oh, we're just getting a hotel. Like, no, stay with me. And he has this cool house next to like I don't know what you call it in Florida. You know how they dig those artificial canals and then put houses all along them?
Yeah.
And he had an e-foil. And he's like, oh yeah, I go e-foil to my friends' houses and to restaurants and stuff. I'm like, man, that's nice way to live. But anyways, he was like, oh yeah, I started this business that like you get registration for like K-trucks and stuff. And I was like, oh, I know that website, because we're always looking into those bits of information. But yeah, so anyway, I think all they do is they open an LLC for you in Montana. They register it to that LLC, and then you get Montana plates, which is awesome because they're lifetime registration, and you don't pay taxes on the vehicle.
Right.
Beautiful. America.
Specifically Montana.
One of the last truly American places. Montana and Texas. And kind of Wyoming, but they do have income tax, don't they?
I don't know if Texas is as Montana is.
Well, they don't have income tax.
Yeah.
And
I just mean like the whole population of Montana is like half of one city in Texas. So like Texas is like before I had been to Texas, I probably would have agreed with you on that. But like Texas is pretty developed. Like there's a lot of emptiness in Texas because it's a giant state. But like I don't know. I don't have that much experience. I mostly have experience with El Paso. But like I don't know. It was not nearly as Wild Westy as not even close to Idaho and Montana. Like it's you know there's it's like There's a lot of big cities there that are bigger than the entire population of Montana. So like,
yeah, that's true.
You know, it's just not the same level. You know,
yeah.
The biggest city in Montana has like 250,000 people. The biggest city
is that
Billings.
Billings.
Yeah, or it's like 300,000. It's tiny.
Wow.
Anyway,
we have the coolest sponsor for this podcast, Onyx Off-Road. It is the app that we bring with us on all of our trips. All of the trails that you see in our YouTube videos are found on Onyx Off-Road. We found things in our backyard that we had no idea, like that crazy trail we took the K-Truck on.
Yep. That was one of the best trails we've done, actually.
Yeah, we got to go back with the Humvee.
We absolutely do. Actually, maybe we should do that when we get the rear suspension.
Yeah, once we get the rear suspension. Well, I need to beef up the steering, but yeah. So steering and suspension, and then we'll take it on that trail.
Yeah.
But yeah, we saw a lot of comments on the last Humvee video about the Alaska road trip idea, which was just like a very random thought from Steven at the end of that video.
Yeah, but I say we do it.
Like, let's go. We're all in for it. Yeah. So it's cool to see that there was a lot of comments in favor of that idea, and that's the thing that Onyx Off-Road would be really helpful for, because we'd be doing, I don't know, a couple thousand miles of out in the wilderness sort of driving around in a Humvee, and you're really...
Well, and Onyx is great because you can see like the comments and stuff and like look at what people have to say about it. Like if we wanted to hit off-road trails on the way, we would know what to expect.
Well, and not even just off-road trails, but like we used on the last Humvee road trip, getting that Humvee home, just finding public land where you can camp, like finding BLM and stuff. That would be definitely an important factor on a trip to Alaska, is like, even if we're not trying to do any off-roading or trails, just finding a place where somewhere along our journey where we can plan to get to have a, public land to camp on or whatever. That's a super cool feature. Because even if there are no official trails, Onyx Off-Road still shows you who owns the land and all of that, which is a cool feature.
And trail closures would be a big thing.
Right.
We learned that the hard way on one of the limo trips. It was like, if you get down a road for a long way in the wrong direction, and then it's closed
in a 30-foot long limousine.
I forgot. Yeah, we had to back up a long way.
Oh yeah, no, I backed up for like a mile or something, a mile and a half down a snowy road.
If only we had it then. But with this trip, it's going to be so long, and we're going to have to budget time well. Like, obviously, we'll budget in some time to afford some mistakes, but if we can make the least amount of mistakes as possible, that would be very helpful.
It would indeed. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't been to Canada in a long time. That would be awesome.
Yep. We could pick up Clinton along the way.
Oh yeah.
We could go stay with Clinton, do some of his trails with the Humvee, and then he could like come along with us for the ride.
Yeah, we gotta do a shakedown before the long haul.
Well, obviously we're not. We also need doors and roof, like a camping setup on the back, and there's a lot of work.
Doors would be nice.
Yeah. Preferably not canvas ones even in the summer. It's going to be kind of chilly up in Alaska.
Yeah, so if you guys want to check out Onyx Off-Road, we have a link in the show notes, and they've been a great sponsor to this podcast and to our YouTube channel. So definitely check it out. Give them some love. When you guys click that link, that helps us out a lot, and it makes the podcast possible.
Anyway, moving on.
I feel like we were telling Steven a story.
Yes, we were talking about these cops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's not legal
in any way.
And I set up the camera on the back of my truck, which we got this new gimbal thing, which if you've seen the video, is super smooth. And that was just suction cup to the tailgate of my truck. That's it. No post stabilization, no nothing. And normally Steven's just hanging out the back of my truck, but he was basically climbing Everest. We'll get into that later. But so we're just hauling, and we were hauling, and we stopped for a thumbnail, which is probably a good thing that we weren't hauling when the troopers arrived.
And I mean, to be clear, we were on very, very, very back dirt roads.
Yeah, where was that even?
Like so far from anything.
You probably can't say the name.
But. Gold Creek. I mean, you can cut it out, but there's a lot of Gold Creeks around here. So anyway,
we're so far back there. Like, we saw 2 trucks the entire time we were out, on the actual road. And we just pulled over, and we're like scrolling through the thumbnails, and then 2 state troopers just roll in, and hop on either side of the chopper. And as they were coming in, Ethan was like, "Oh, there's some officers, but it's probably not a problem. Like, we weren't even doing anything at the time. We were literally pulled over on the side of the road.
At an intersection with another.
Yeah. And so they like pull over on either side of the chopper, and I was like, oh, shoot. Like, are we in trouble?
Because like it had occurred to me that we'd driven back and forth in the same spot like 4 times because we were trying to shoot a specific thumbnail.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, it's a very loud motorcycle. I wouldn't blame anyone for calling the cops and being like, yo, this dude is just going back and forth in front of my house.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would have been a really quick response. So, like, I figured they weren't there for us, but I was like, it could still get awkward.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I just had the camera and I was like, I guess whatever's happening, we're getting some footy. And so, but they roll in and they're just super stoked to check out the bike. They all took pictures. They're asking questions. None of them in regards to if it was legal or not. I think that was very clear to everyone.
That it was not. Yeah, they just didn't care.
Yeah, at all.
They probably just assumed you guys lived like right near there or something.
Yeah, I mean, they did ask like where we lived, but like that was just kind of a side question.
And they probably were curious
if we'd been on like the highway to get there. It probably helped that I was like, oh yeah, we live up, like you don't even have to really go on pavement to get, anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so they were super
If they'd run into us, like, say, on Highway 95, that would have been a very different situation. We'll clarify that.
For sure. But yeah, we definitely got out of that one lucky. It was really fun. Like, they were just blown away, and they were nothing but smiles. Like,
they seemed stoked in the video. I know that's been cut down from what really happened.
That was all there was, really.
There wasn't super a single bit of negativity or...
Yeah, they did seem just stoked. They were like, wow, what is this machine?
Yeah. They're super stoked.
Yeah.
And it was like, because at first I was like, okay, they're going to say something. And then it seemed like they weren't, and they were just like stoked. But even like halfway through talking with them, I'm like, but where is this going? Like, are they really here just to check it out? Or are they going to be like, all right, guys, well, we had our pictures, had our fun. Now we got to talk about, like, you guys are on a public road with.
And there was just none of that?
I figured they'd at least like tell us, hey, like, you can't be doing this. Like the time that we were riding that electric Power Wheels around town.
Oh.
And like, because like that guy was like, you can't be driving this on the roads, right? And we're like, we're on the sidewalk. He's like, you can't do that either. And he like told us what we couldn't do, and then basically was just like, well, just don't cause a situation where I have to come back. Basically. But like, they didn't even do that. They were just like, nah, it's fine. Yeah. And I also expected them to get back on the main road and keep going.
Yeah.
And instead they just went down the dead end, right past a sign that said dead end. I was like, what are they doing down there?
Yeah, that's the part that's weird to me. Like, why were they out there?
Somebody in a comment said that like they maybe were serving warrants or something. Which or
would state troopers do that though?
I don't know. I guess they could if other people are busy. Like, they have jurisdiction in the whole state, I guess. But so,
there's got to be 4 houses down that road, maybe.
I don't know. I've never driven down that road because it's a dead end, and so I would assume there's probably like 4 or 5 houses down that road.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the odds of that happening.
Also, for whatever, why did they need 2 cars and 3 people for whatever? Doesn't matter. They were doing something. The funniest part is like he acknowledged that. Like, the main guy that was talking to us the most, that pulled over to first, he was like, "Oh yeah, you're probably wondering what like 3 stadies are doing out here," and I was like, "Yeah," and he just was like, "Continue to wonder." I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah, there was
so anything. Like, he acknowledged the weirdness of it, and then just moved right on.
And I feel like if it wasn't something serious, he would have been like, "Oh yeah, we're just checking out this complaint or something."
Right. I think it was something.
But then it obviously wasn't super urgent because they didn't have the lights on, and they sat and talked to us for
10
minutes, 7 minutes.
Maybe they were waiting for like more backup.
No. I mean, because we were there for a while after they left, and there weren't more people. So.
Yeah.
No, they.
My favorite part though is right away when they rolled up, like before I knew if we were in trouble or not. They were like, "Oh, like how well does it work or something?" And Ethan was like, "Oh, I mean, I was just braking traction in 3rd gear." And he's like pointing to the road, and I was like, only Ethan would be like telling the cops about how we were doing 3rd gear rolling burnouts down this public road.
To be fair, it's a dirt road, so braking traction is common, and also third gear has no implication whatsoever about what speed it is. It's not actually incriminating evidence because he has no way of knowing what third gear is, and braking traction on gravel is irrelevant. Everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
That was, I did consider these things before I said it. I was just like, there's nothing he can do about me saying that it breaks traction. I didn't say, I'm doing a mad burnout, bro. Also, he was like, his first question wasn't like, it wasn't phrased like I'm concerned about this. He's like, oh, does that thing, like, does it actually mob? So, like, he was already, like, clearly not, like, mob is not a term you'd be using about a motorcycle if you were worried about, like, whether it was legal or not.
And then Ethan's like, oh, yeah, it mobs, watch this.
No, because, like, if he'd been like, oh, how fast were you going? Or how fast does it go? I would have been like, I don't know. It doesn't have a speedometer. And then I would have been vague.
You could have been like, theoretically, it could maybe go 80. Like,
yeah, right. But like, he was just like, oh, does that thing actually mob? And I was like, oh, yeah. It breaks traction all the way through third gear, man.
Part that you couldn't see in the video, though, is there was kind of this hill right behind where I was pointing the camera the most of the interaction. And up the hill, it was like that really hard-packed dirt, freshly oiled. So it wasn't like loose gravel. And from Ethan going over the crest of this hill, it was like right where we tried to shoot the thumbnail. And so he was kind of like doing those rolling burnouts up the hill. And there was just a black line, like exactly as wide as our tire, which is pretty wide, like all the way up this little hill. And so it was kind of funny because I knew like right behind me was evidence of our wrongdoings. And I was like, from the angle I filmed, you can't see it because when I go this way, one of the cop cars was in the way, It was
but I was funny.
Like, yeah, so after that, like we just kind of laughed. We're like, wow, like that was lucky. And also, like, not lucky that they were there in the first place.
Yeah, right.
But we were like, wow, we kind of got away with that one because we'd brought the FPV drone and we were going to keep going and shoot some more stuff. But the sun was already pretty much going down and we're like, let's just cut our losses and go home.
I mean, I wouldn't even call that a loss.
Not a loss. It was more like a quit while you're ahead sort of situation.
Yeah.
Just be like, you know what? That went really well. Let's just not. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did some 3D printing while you were gone.
I know a lot happened. I was only gone
taught
for
me how to weld.
I saw your welds.
There's some shocks half mounted on the Humvee. If you average it, there's actually one shock all the way mounted because that's how physics works.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah, I guess if you think about it, like what we did while you're gone is like pretty evident. You just walk around the garage for a couple seconds and you see.
Well, I didn't notice the shocks in there until you pointed them out, and
yeah. It was a really solid week, actually. We got like a lot done and like a lot done on various projects, Yeah,
it was kind of a bit of everything. So we were working on Trouper, Humvee. Edwin was working on, we were working on the little pink.
Yeah, I noticed the tray you printed right away for the battery because the battery wasn't in there before I left.
Carbon fiber reinforced.
It's pretty sweet that we can do that now.
Dude, it's so sick. And they're coming out with a glow-in-the-dark filament.
That's carbon fiber? Or just glow in the dark in general?
I don't know if it's...
Probably not. Carbon fiber probably wouldn't.
I think most of their carbon fiber filaments are dark. There's like
they would have to be because it's carbon. The carbon is black, so they'd have to be pretty dark pigments.
So I think this one, I forget what type of plastic it is. I still need to learn about what plastics are good for what things and stuff. But I think a lot of it comes down to like price and flexibility because there's some that are more brittle. And then obviously like things like that GoPro mount, the Chinster.
Yeah.
It needs to be flexible. Ethan and I were talking about that on Friday. We were like, because the Z-axis gimbal we got.
That's all just 3D printed plastic.
While you were gone, Ethan was literally like, oh, does this need to be a little tighter? Barely even wrenched on it, broke in half.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
$120. We were talking about
what?
We were talking about the way it clamps together, and Edwin's like, "Oh, it's just like threads into the plastic." And so I grabbed
strong enough.
I grabbed the other half. Yeah, I grabbed the other half, and I was like, "I mean, it's pretty solid." And I just went, "Oh yeah, look, like even this one's just like sitting here. It doesn't move." And then I went, broken in half.
Oh, geez, yeah, you'd think they'd make it with a little bit of give.
Yeah.
The only thing in the garage that we didn't make any progress on because we're just busy with the other stuff. But I did have a sad realization about this weekend. The water is colder than it was 2 weekends ago, and it's only going to keep getting colder.
Yes.
And my wife wore her half wetsuit, which is premature. If you've been born in Idaho, you wouldn't have worn your wetsuit yesterday, but she did.
Yeah, it was hot yesterday too. It wasn't even.
I was like, dang, I don't think double jet boat is going to be.
No,
like,
I think that's going to be more of a winter project.
It's done.
Well, I was telling Ethan, I was like, we still should do it, and then we'll get it ready for winter. It's a good excuse for us all to get dry suits. And then Ethan's like, I don't really want to die under the ice.
Yeah, Steven's talking about like going in the icy rivers. He's like, we could go up Bull River in the ice. I was like, no.
I think my dad has 2 or 3 we could borrow.
Dry suits?
I don't care how many suits you've got. I'm not jet boating up a rapid river in the ice.
Ethan can be the cameraman.
There's a lot of fun ways to die, and that's one of the worst. Well, freezing to death and drowning at the same time, not on my list.
You drown faster than you freeze to death.
I'm not. Yes, I know.
We'll do a role reversal.
No, I'm not saying.
Steven and I will drive, and then you can film.
I'm not saying I wouldn't drive it in cold weather. Like, that wasn't part of this conversation. Like, if it was freezing cold, yes, I would still drive it with a wetsuit or a dry suit. I'm just saying I'm not driving it up a frozen, rapidy river, and none of us are. That's way too, like, one thing goes wrong and you're just hypothermia.
Something we've been talking about doing for years. There's a lot of peninsulas and bays in our lake, and the lake is so deep, the whole thing never freezes. And we keep saying, like, while the lake is melting, we need to, because you can kind of jump these little boats pretty easily. So we just need to jump from the water and then slide across the ice.
Oh, yeah. That I'm so totally down for on like a still body. It was specifically Steven's talking about going up the up like a gnarly little skinny river that'd be covered with ice and stuff. I was like, nah.
Steven really likes those kind of adventures.
Yeah, I like the weird stuff.
He likes
but what gave me that idea?
Ice.
Yeah, it's nice. What gave me the idea, though, is like when I think this must have been like March or something, but I was driving down the Bull River and I noticed that it was melted out just in the middle, about 8 feet wide,
It'd be so
in a little
sick.
like snake.
It would look cool,
yeah, I just was imagining the footage and I was like,
I mean, it depends on which part we're talking to, because the part, like the upper part of it is all smooth, flat
That's
water,
what I was talking about.
Be that
the lower
sketchy.
part you can't even see from the road, so I couldn't tell you what that looked like, but
yeah,
the upper part, it would be kind of cool, and it'd be sketchy.
Is it flowing at all that time of year? I guess that's why
it's always.
not.
I mean, it's always flowing, but
middle.
it's really mild.
Yeah.
The upper part of Bull River, like we didn't get there when we were filming because the jet boat died.
If you guys have seen our videos, there's the very last video on the pink micro jet boat when we're jumping that little island and
about
Sam
a year
came
ago.
Out, that is the river we're talking about.
Yeah,
the one where our battery died and Ethan had to push it down
half
for
a mile down the river. Yeah, that was miserable. But yeah, so anyway, that river, the upper portion of it that we didn't get to is like Pack River, where it's flat water. It's very slow moving at the upper section. The lower section is the rapids. That's the part I was talking about. Like, definitely not a good idea to drive up it in the winter.
Is there public access further up?
I don't know.
No.
I can get us private access.
Oh, really?
But there are a lot of roads that cross it, so I'm sure we could find a spot where there's a little bridge that crosses
we could just carry it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's
Alyssa's
nice
grandpa
about
has
little boats.
property like right there, and it was funny because the last time I visited them, like he has an Argo, and he is the perfect man for an Argo. Like, there's not many people I would say, oh, this guy needs an Argo. He needs an Argo. He was just like driving through these swamps, like, oh, I think we got stuck. We're like, oh.
Nice. Nice.
I was thinking we should take the little jet boat for the next river thing up Priest River.
Yeah. This time of year, that'd be fine.
You said people are like jet ski up that and stuff, right?
I don't know about jet ski, but I know people paddle it. I think you can take
it's fairly rapidy, but like not. It's like
this time of year though. It's probably too low.
Not for one of these. It's not.
Yeah. It might be questionable because people can't even float it this time of year.
Yeah, but that can go places you can't even float.
Yeah.
And literally places you can't even float.
Yeah. Well, we could get information on that later today too.
Yeah. Anyway, we also don't have to do it this year.
But no, that would be a sick spot
because it's a bigger river and it's really scenic. And then you could also go from effectively it's the river, but you could go from the Ponderay River up to Priest Lake, all the way up the river.
Except for the dam. You'd have to...
Oh, there's a dam?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to port around it.
Okay,
well, whatever. There is access points on either side, I believe. Yeah. But we'd have to have a truck there, for sure.
Yeah. I didn't realize there was a dam on that river.
Yeah, it's a really small, like, swindly dam. It's like 7 feet tall or something.
That's a jumpable distance.
From the dam
might be able to
into the lake.
If we build the right ramp, we could just jump up the dam.
Oh, this dam is like a dam.
Oh, Steven said it was like a little 7 foot
I think it's
dam.
only like 7 or 8 feet tall, isn't it?
Well, that's pretty big for a ramp.
That's what I'm saying. It's possible.
Because there's like, what do they call those little hump dams that aren't real dams? Because technically the water flies all the way over the top.
Yeah.
There's a name for that.
I don't know.
So that one, you could actually just jet boat over if it was that kind of dam. But
yeah.
I seem to remember it being like a large cement wall.
Ah, well then, yeah.
Is that not what it is?
Yeah, it's a large cement wall. But yeah, Ethan's correct. Technically, you could just bring like a giant ramp into the river.
We were already talking about building a jet boat / wakeboard jump for reasons.
We came up with a lot of bad ideas.
But to be clear, we were asked specifically to come up with bad ideas.
That's true.
We were doing it for reasons.
Who asked you to come up with bad ideas?
It was a potential sponsor for a TV show. And they said, quote, "We want jackass-like content creators."
Well, building a giant jump and jumping a dam is a good place to start. Can you imagine like the state troopers then like, what are you doing with that ramp in the river? Nothing.
Don't worry about it. And then you come around while they're standing there, a boat comes around the corner. Sails over the dam.
Oh, I love the boats.
Yeah.
When Rem was here, we did go from the dam going into the lake through the Clark Fork River all the way into the lake. And right at the dam, it's like actually pretty deep. And we're like, oh yeah, no problem. This will be easy. And so then we were just foiling. And all of a sudden we see these mad rapids with rocks sticking out and stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We're like with the stream and it was flowing. I was surprised. I didn't think it'd be flowing at all this time of year. It was mad flowing.
And
so,
even a e-foil, unlike a jet boat, cannot skip over rocks at all.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, the mast sticks 32 inches down from the board.
Right.
And the motor is at the bottom of the mast. So that was interesting. All of a sudden I was like, bail. And I jump off, grab the edge of my board, flip it over, and then I hang on to it. And then we're just going through the rapids.
Oh my gosh.
Like, we probably could have seen it from the road, but I wasn't even paying attention. We were just chatting it up. And so then this happened twice where we just had to like jump off the boards, flip them over, grab them, go through the rapids. But once we got into the Johnson Creek area where we filmed like the first major test boat drive, it was just perfectly flat. There were herons flying, osprey flying. And we were like, wow, if we just would have started here, we would have had like a great day. But we got almost 20 miles on one battery since we had so much downstream action.
That's a long ways.
Yeah, it was awesome. So,
well, I just stacked rocks all weekend, so there's that.
Nice.
You did make a lot of progress, though.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate puzzle. I like puzzles.
Yeah. So what did you do? And I guess you also have to explain to the people why you do these kind of things.
Yeah, I actually was questioning myself on the why a lot while I was there because it's like, I just got back from a 5-day hike and it was hard, to put it in nice words. Like, it was extremely hard. I'm the third person who's ever completed this route, which is kind of why I wanted to do it. But I was questioning myself on the way. I'm like, why am I doing this? No one even knows about this. Like, I basically did the effort of like 2 or 3 Ironmans over 5 days for something that literally even the people I met on the trails, once I connected to them, were like, I've never heard of that spot. So I'm like, okay, yeah, why did I do this? I have no idea. But yeah, I connected 2 mountains to each other by bushwhacking and climbing ridges. And it took 5 days. And
what did you say? It was like 35 miles?
Yeah, it ended up being 35 miles. And
but the elevation is the killer.
Yeah, it was over 12,000 feet of elevation gain in total. On my last day, I hiked out. I was going to break it up into 2 days. And I hiked out all 20 miles in one day. And even the people, because I connected to the Pacific Crest Trail to get out, which is a pretty popular trail. Even the people on there were like, oh, it's hard to do more than 10 or 15 miles in this section. Like, all these people are like seasoned hikers. I met this guy who's been hiking since March, and he's like, oh, I don't do more than 15 miles on this part. And so
he's been hiking nonstop
since March. Yeah. And he was doing like 25, 30-mile days. And he's like, nope, this section of Washington State, like, you can't hike that far. It's too hard.
Oh.
So I managed to do, I was like 8,000 feet of descending and 6,000 feet of ascent and 20 miles in 1 day.
I think I'm getting a call from the guy who's delivering the Ferrari.
Oh, that's way more important.
Your wife just tried to call me, so I assume it's that.
Hello?
Ferrari.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I can be there in half an hour. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. If not,
The half of a Ferrari that's not.
Oh yeah. Okay.
One's on wheels, but
we need a people.
yeah, just tell him we'll meet him there, and then
yeah, we'll meet you there, and we'll have everything we need.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. So, all right, cool. Sorry about that.
No problem. No worries. I have something to do before you
Oh.
here.
Okay. Great.
No problem. Thank you.
Easy. We'll be there in 30.
Okay.
All right.
I guess
that
it's
was
Ferrari time.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like 4 or something, and he was supposed to call ahead of time, but
they never do.
yeah.
Why? Yeah, why is that consistent with these delivery drivers? They're like,
don't
"Where
know.
are you?" They're like, "I'm here 5 hours early, but I didn't tell anyone I was going to be early. Why aren't you here?"
When this shop got delivered, he showed up a day early and called me already at my house and was like, yeah, so I'm here. What do you want me to do? And I was like, what?
There's a semi-truck full of steel.
Yeah.
At like 8 o'clock at night. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we got to end this podcast real quick and go unload a Ferrari and a half.
I'll tell you guys about my hike when I've processed it more. I went through some mentally challenging times.
Yeah, it's a short podcast, but we need to remember next week we're talking about the hike, the rock house made out of boulders, and the double porta potty.
It's an outhouse, not a porta potty. There's a difference.
Oh.
Porta potties are portable and they're plastic and they're disgusting. Outhouses are generally non-portable.
Yeah.
They're generally made out of wood, rock, or other more durable
Yours
materials.
was awesome. I
Yeah.
used to use it all the time, even when your bathroom was free.
Yeah, it's going to be like that, but nicer and with a much nicer view.
And with 2 seats, so you could be there with your friends. I'm not going to be there with you, Edwin, but you can find somebody.
All right, sounds good.
Anyway.
That's the Sit and Vent podcast. The next one is going to have more of the stuff we wanted to talk about today, but we've got 1.5 Ferraris in the mail, so what are you going to do?
I'd call it like 3/4 and a half, honestly.
That's true.
We have 1.25 Ferraris, but you have to say it 3/4 and a half because neither of them are remotely complete.
Yeah, we were watching Formula One with some of our friends this weekend, and Em was on the phone, and she was like, "Oh, the Ferrari's going to be here next week." And all of our friends were like, "Whoa, like that's so cool. You're going to get a Ferrari?" And I was like, "Kind of." And I showed them a picture, and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's a Ferrari."
I haven't seen it at all, so I'm kind of excited to
That'll be
get my eyes on this beast.
Well,
yeah, let's go.
I guess we should get the cameras ready.
Yup.
That's the Sit and Vent podcast. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts every week.